Hello, and welcome to another Silver Screen Filmmakers Club workshop. We are glad you are joining us today. The information provided to you today is brought to you by the Stage Incubator, along with our sponsor, the Indiana Arts Commission. This is also brought to you in partnership with the Center for Urban and Regional Excellence at Indiana University Northwest and Folk Art, the Volunteers Office for Community Accessibility Resources and Training. All right, well, welcome back, Silver Screen filmmakers. We're glad to have you in this next little mini lesson here. Let's go on and get started. So, this is all a part of Module 4, and this is all about creating a log line. So, thinking back to our original main lesson, which was all about developing your concept for your short film. The first part was all about how to brainstorm and covering the different techniques you could use when brainstorming. Well, now the second part is all about how to create a log line for your film. Again, with the formalities, my name is Gretchen. I am your facilitator for this lesson, and hopefully, I'll be able to shine some light on this crucial part of your film. So, we are still in week 4, and this is our third lesson in this week where we talk about creating a log line. So, welcome again to our next lesson for this week. And we know and understand by this point how important it is and how foundational it is for us to have a strong concept for our short film. Now, today we're going to cover how to create a great log line for your film and make sure that we have this fundamental piece that we will use not only for our film poster, but also as we refine the structure of our film. So, our outline for today, for this lesson, is number 1, covering the definition of a log line. 2, what are the key elements? 3, how to actually create the log line. And then lastly, we're going to look at a couple example log lines and what are some helpful tips for writing effective log lines. So, what is a log line? I know that's sort of like a foreign term, and which I'm using this term, and I'm like, what exactly is this? Well, your log line is that one sentence summary of your film that distills the core story into its essential elements. It succinctly captures the main character, their goal, and the primary conflict or obstacle that they face. Now, why this is important is that a well-crafted logline provides a clear and compelling snapshot for your film's premise. It entices your potential viewer and hopefully allows for more collaboration among the characters in your film and helps you to refine what the essence of your story is. So let's jump into the key elements of it. Now, when creating a logline, it's important to do a number of things. One thing you need to do is include the protagonist. That's the hero of the story. That's that main character. You must have that protagonist in that logline. Then, what is their goal? What are they trying to accomplish? Next, the obstacle or the conflict that they face. What is it that they're going up against? What are they trying to overcome? What are they trying to conquer? And with that, also the stakes that are involved. If it's saving the earth from these, aliens, or whether it's, helping humanity get through this great famine. What are the stakes that are involved? The other thing you can also include in your log line is, if you want to include the setting, if it adds significant context, which means basically if you want to say, in a famine uh, ravaged land, this protagonist, this hero emerges. That's what that is all about. If you want to include that setting, that famine engulfed land. So your protagonist, that's your main character, right? That's the hero of the story. Then you have your goal, like describing what that protagonist wants to achieve, or what is their primary objective. Their obstacle, that's highlighting the main challenge or even the antagonist that stands in the way of the protagonist's way. If the antagonist, whether they're a school bully, whether they are the contrarian who is trying to go against the greater good, who is that antagonist? Now, stakes, that refers to why that goal is important, to save humanity for future generations. And what is at risk if it's not achieved? And lastly, of course, that setting, which adds a bit of intrigue. So let's break down the steps to create a log line. You start by identifying your protagonist with a brief descriptor. And this comes out of when you do your brainstorming to actually come up with that concept for the film. You identify who's your protagonist, who is your hero. What are they? Middle aged, widow, who it could be a male widow who lost his wife to cancer, or whoever your hero is. You want to include, you know, they could be depressed, they could be, anxious, all those descriptors. They could have some kind of weakness. You want to include that in there and then define their goal, high and define what they're trying to achieve. Third, you highlight that obstacle or conflict that they're facing. And then you mention the states that are involved, and obviously, mention that setting. You know, if you're talking about, for instance, Harry Potter, you're giving you want to describe him as the young wizard. Or if it's a detective film, a disillusioned detective, or even an adventurous teenager. When you're trying to define that goal, what is it that the protagonist is trying to achieve? You want to make sure that this is clear and specific, because that helps to drive your story forward. That helps to drive this film forward. What are they working for? And then when we come back to that highlighting the obstacle or the conflict, who stands in the protagonist's way? This could be an antagonist, so this could be a bully, someone outside of that person. It could be an institution. It could be a personal flaw. They could be their own worst enemy. It could be a societal issue, or even any kind of significant barrier that is standing in the way. And then stating the stakes. Why is this goal important? What happens if the protagonist fail? What happens if the wizard fails? It adds that sense of urgency and puts in that emotional weight to the log line. So you want to make sure that you have those fundamental pieces to begin to create that log line. Now, let's look at some examples of log lines. Notice as we go through each one of these how it clearly identifies the protagonist, their goal, the obstacle they face, and the stakes involved. For example, let's look at this first one here. A young farm boy on a distant planet discovers he has mystical powers and must join a rebel alliance to save the galaxy from an evil empire. So let's break this down. A young farm boy, that's our protagonist there. He's the hero. And, we know that he is on a distant planet. That's that setting that provides that extra context, right? Now, he discovers he has mystical powers and must join a rebel alliance to save the galaxy from an evil empire. So, what's the goal? To join a rebel alliance to save the galaxy. Now, what's his obstacle here? He's saving the galaxy from an evil empire. That's the obstacle. That's the conflict. That's was coming against him. And the stakes here is the fate of the galaxy. The stakes involved is the fate of the galaxy. If he does not join the Rebel Alliance, he can't save the galaxy. So let's check out another one, just to, give you another another example here of a log line. A brilliant but troubled detective must solve a series of gruesome murders in a dystopian city before the killer strikes again. A brilliant but troubled detective must solve a series of gruesome murders in a dystopian city before the killer strikes again. So now we know our protagonist is a detective, but where we have that brilliant but troubled, that's a part of that character makeup. How we talk about their strengths, how we talk about their weaknesses, how we talk about what is, what is their strengths, their weaknesses, what they bring to the table. The protagonist is a brilliant but troubled detective. Now his goal is he has to solve a series of gruesome murders. That's the goal. Gotta solve the murders. Now the obstacle, the conflict, while it's not necessarily mentioned in the log line, it's implied. The conflict or the obstacle in his way is the killer, and we know that the detective is trouble. So it's the detective's own trouble. He has some weaknesses here that serve as an obstacle for him. The stakes, well, he's got to solve these series of gruesome murders before the killer strikes again. So he's got to prevent more murders. He doesn't want any more people killed. And we know that, I mentioned a dystopian city. That's the setting. That's the setting. So that's another example. All right. So let's just check out one more just to give you a full holistic view here. We have another log line. An overworked mother of three finds her life turned upside down when she inherits a haunted house in the countryside. An overworked mother of three finds her life turned upside down when she inherits a haunted house in the countryside. So, who is our protagonist? Who is our hero here? Yep, it's that overworked mother of three. You know, so we have, when we think of how our mind map is made up, and we have that character block coming out of that central idea. That central idea, we have the character of the mother, and her characteristics is that she's overworked and she's a mother of three. Now her goal is she has to cope with this inherited haunted house. She just inherited this haunted house, and she has to cope with it. She has to figure her way out because her life has been turned upside down. Now, the obstacle here is the haunted house. That's what she's fighting with. The stakes. Well, she's a mother of three, so it's a family, of course. But on top of that, she's overworked. So it's her own sanity. That's what's at stake here. Her sanity and her family. And it mentions that, this haunted house is in the countryside. So providing extra context there, we have the setting, the countryside. Now, there are some things I want you to keep in mind. I know this was a short lesson. It's pretty, sort of simple and cut and dry here. When you're writing your log line, here's some tips for you. Number one, you want to keep it concise, And you want to focus on the core of the elements of your story. So be concise. Keep it to one sentence. You want to aim for clarity and brevity. Okay? It doesn't have to be long, it just needs to be strong. Okay? Be concise. Two, focus on the core. You want to distill that story that you broke out in that brainstorming, distill it to its most essential elements: the who, the what, the how, the why. Okay? You want to avoid subplots and minor characters because remember, this is a short film now. This is not a series or a trilogy that you're putting together. So it needs to be short, sweet, punch, and with a punch. You want to make it compelling. So that means using some descriptive language that can invoke interest or even curiosity. Then this log line, it needs to highlight uniqueness. Show what makes your story stand out. What's the hook here that makes it different from other films? You know? And then lastly, test and refine. Share your log line with others and give feedback. And then you can make adjustments so to make sure that it clearly communicates the essence of your film. So, this was a brief lesson here. I want you to remember a few things. A well crafted log line, it provides a clear and compelling snapshot of your film's premise. Now, we walked through the definition of a log line, the elements, how to create a log line, and examples of a log line. We even, saw how well you can, be able to really capture of the essence of a film by having an impactful log line. So, as we wrap up this lesson, remember to keep it concise and keep it brief, but make sure it's packed with a punch. Now, we do have a helpful quick document that has helpful links on how to help you develop an engaging log line. I want to encourage you to use a variety of other tools as you create this. You don't have to necessarily come up with it from scratch. So I have a document that will be in our Moodle in your course that will help you. It has a lot of different links that help you to create that compelling log line. And some of those sites, it takes you to different websites, and some of the sites just want you to put in a brief description that you have gathered with the elements from your brainstorming, and it curates that log line for you. All right. All right. As we say all the time, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at thestageincubator@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. This again is part of our mini series that goes with our big lesson of developing a concept for your short film. I want you to make sure that you keep in mind, your creativity should be at flow here. Don't let anything limit you. Thank you again for attending this lesson in how to create your logline for your short film, and be on the lookout for the next video. If you want to stay up to date with any updates and helpful documents, check into your Moodle and look for your course updates. Thank you. Well, I hope you learned a lot. Thank you for joining the Stage Incubator and viewing a part of our digital literacy series. We really appreciate you being here, and thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at thestageincubator@gmail.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Again, we want to thank our sponsors and our partners: the Indiana Arts Commission, the Center for Urban and Regional Excellence, and VOCART, the Volunteers Office for Community Accessibility, Resource, and Training. We hope to see you at our next session, and stay tuned for more things to come.